Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Our first conversation today, of course, was centered around education. And before we went on that break, we did tell you that today we intend to take a look at advancing Nigeria's educational curriculum. It's been said time and time again that every nation that intends to develop must also look at its education. And if we do not concentrate on the development of education in Nigeria, it means there is a crisis waiting to happen. And so on the program today, we'll take a look at how much our curriculum dictates what we know, what we learn, and at the end of the day, how the nation can develop. We do have a guest in the house today, and together we'll be taking a look at this very important topic, especially now that the federal government has pegged 16 years as the year of admission in Nigeria. So it's definitely will play a critical role here. During this conversation, we have a child care business expert in the studio this morning. Join us as welcome, Caroline Popola. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you. So we're looking at curriculum, and sometimes people believe that when you talk about education, curriculum plays a pivotal role. You are an expert in that field yourself. So let's start from there. Can you break it down when we say curriculum? What exactly are we talking about?
Thank you so much. And that's the starting, that's the basics. So I'll just say a little bit about myself. So I'm into the early years, which is the foundation stage of children. And that's really where the curriculum really comes in and plays a very pivotal role when it comes to the age and the development of the children. So if we're talking about curriculum as a whole, first and foremost, what curriculum are we even talking about? Because we've seen where so many people, especially schools in Nigeria and across Africa, they're looking at the British curriculum or the American curriculum. What about our curriculum? Because the culture is different. Why don't we involve or tweak the curriculum in such a way that benefits our children? And I think before we started on, I did mention to you about it's one thing having teachers building their confidence, they're adding value to children and so on. But if we don't have the children in the classroom in the first place to interest them in what's being taught, what children are we going to teach? Right. So we have, driving around Nigeria yesterday, or around Lagos, I should say. I don't want to sound like some Nigeria, Lagos. I saw so many children under the age of 5 out begging on the streets. We need to get them into classrooms in the first place, because we can't keep thinking we're talking about curriculum or we're talking about teaching. You're only talking about that for the privileged. What about the less privileged? They're still children. They've not been asked to be born into that condition. Right. So they are still children. They still have rights, and that right to education. So we need to first and foremost start thinking about tweaking our curriculum in such a way that attracts even those children into classrooms. Because if we bring them in by crook, by fire, by force, whatever, if it's not attractive enough, they'll be back on the streets. Right. So what curriculum are we even talking about? And I had a program recently, last weekend, and the ex-minister of education, Dr. Obi, made a statement that really stuck with me. That when she hears about schools that are talking about British curriculum, she just literally cringes and thinking, oh, we've lost our value, we've lost who we are. Because we are a nation, we are a country, we are proud to be Nigerians, we're proud to be Africans. Why don't we tweak curriculum to suit our children first and foremost? And then we attract them in and build our teachers' confidence to be able to teach those subjects.
Right. Fantastic point you raised here. And again, it means that we need to go back to the basics and then start looking at how education can be attractive, like you've said. So here's a problem. A lot of Nigerians would want to sound British, would want to sound American, would want to think, if I go to the classroom and decide to teach in the Yoruba language, I become inferior. Or why would I even want to speak Yoruba language or any African language to the children? So it means that there's something we're doing wrong. So here, now my question is, parents also have a huge role to play here. We know that parents are the first teachers to their kids. And so how do we also begin to change the mindset or the orientation of parents to buy into this build from home curriculum, because again, if we do not take it from there, we're also making a huge mistake. So how do we get to make parents to believe in this before taking it to the schools or to government?
So there's something where the role is really about the government.
Okay.
What have they said? Because if we don't know what we're doing as a government, and I'm not saying they don't, but if we don't know what we're doing as a government in education, what our expectations are, then how can we then enforce anything?
Okay.
So, for example, I grew up in the UK, not because I chose to, but our parents, again, back to parents. If you have the Irish, if you go to Ireland, they speak Irish. Their language is key. If you go to Scotland, their language is key. If you go to Wales, their language, and they would teach in those languages, as well as English. Again, move away from the UK, go to the likes of China, Bangladesh. We're saying Mandarin's become the language of the world.
Right.
Why is that? Because they take pride in their language and in their education. What's wrong with us? That's because, again, I don't want to make it a government issue, but once the government, if they have an invested interest and they're proud of the country we're in and proud of everything that is Nigerian or African, then we will start to implement it.
Okay.
For example, the simplest thing we've done recently, you never ever thought Nigeria could have databases. I mean, growing up, I never thought. All of a sudden, we have an invested interest, or you have people of power that have an invested interest in BVN and NI. All of a sudden now you can't do anything without it. So why can't we do the same about education?
Okay.
I thought if you want to build a country, if you want to build the next generation, education is paramount. Why are we not doing that? Why is education the last thing? Or why is education the one we're not even investing in?
Okay.
So we need to get to the stage where we're sitting with the government and they're having not just the invested interest, but they automatically investing in education with money that would make a change, and they can see these new systems implemented within the system, within the curriculum, and parents would then start to change their mindset because it's paramount. We need to fall in love with who we are as a country again. But again, there's so many reasons why people are not, and you can't blame the country for not doing that. Okay. If you have an European school coming in to promote a school here, and they're paying in dollars, and that's the way we're going, again, it beckons really, what are we doing? Right.
So let's go back to curriculum again here and look at what we currently do have. While some will say perhaps our curriculum could be outdated, some will say, oh, well, we can tweak, what we have and get the best results from what we have. And because you do early childhood, and we know that that's actually where to start from, I wouldn't know. A case study would be, what have you found? I mean, in your business or in your interaction with people here, that you see as the major problem or the major impediment why it seems we're probably not doing it the right way, or we need to just sustain certain momentum.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, do we even know the statistics of children within the early years? Between 2020 and 2025, we have over 31 million. So a country of 236 approximately million, we have over 31 million of them that are under the age of 5. 31 million across Nigeria that are under the age of 5. That's huge. So what are we even doing with those ones in the first place? What conversations are we even having in the first place? And the second problem, I feel, so one is knowing the numbers. And when you hear those huge numbers, we really need to act, because that's the next generation of children we're talking about. That's the next presidents and the next ministers. And if we haven't started with them now, we're in trouble. So number two, our teachers, how much power do we give them?
Right.
Because I know from my interaction with teachers in the last, we've come in and done this program in the last 4 years in Nigeria. And we've had, I mean, the numbers just crazy. From starting with 300 to, on Saturday, we have over 2,200. And all educators. So there must be something they're hungry for.
Right.
Are we even listening to them? And how are we empowering them? I know the service industry is one that, yes, there's not a lot of reward, but a lot is expected of you. But what power do we have? Do we give them? What confidence do we give them? Do they even know their value?
Right.
Because a school is where if a teacher speaks, this is from what I hear. If a teacher speaks, the teacher will be let go. If they had to go at a parent or had to correct a parent or something like that, and the owner of the school is not aware, they might let the teacher go if the parent complains. That don't happen in developed countries.
Okay.
Because that's your role. It's just like me coming into your station and telling you how to do things. I'm a guest. I cannot come into your home and tell you how to run your home.
Right.
So why do parents feel like they have the power to go into a school and talk to a confident teacher? Remember, a confident teacher that understands the value they had into children.
Right.
So if we haven't built that, teachers don't have that confidence.
Right.
Then they cringe at the fact that, oh, I can't really correct a parent. I can't really say anything because our head will have a go.
Right. Again, because you have a background in the UK, let's also look at age brackets. I mean, you've given a fantastic figure here of the number of children that below 5 or between 0 and 5.
5, yeah.
And we talk about this all the time. In Nigeria, we have a penchant of starting really early, and
Yes.
really early. And by 2, you're already wearing uniform and you're already in school. Ordinarily, I know that in the UK, you can't do that. And of course, there's also the gap year. You do things according to, your years and all of that. So is that also a problem? Is that also a challenge where we also put too much pressure on the children here and not taking cognizance of their age, not taking cognizance of what they can take per time, per session? Sometimes they just want to sleep. They just want to sleep. And so is that also an issue here and part of developing curriculums? At what point should we look at our curriculum and say, okay, peradventure you're even taking your child to school at age 3, so they shouldn't even be writing. They should probably still be singing and doing rhymes. And so that's where some people have also brought in the Montessori system of learning. So talk to us about the age. If you peradventure you need to even take your child to school at an early age, what kind of curriculum should be developed at that particular point in time?
I like that question. And that's the reason why we're in the country. So if you're asking a 2-year-old to start to count 1 to 50, that's...
Child abuse.
You said it won. That's a big issue. However, one thing you can do, and this is again where teachers understand their role, because yes, all of those things fit into the curriculum. We have the 7 areas of learning, and yes, all of those things fit into it. So their literacy and their PSCD, emotional development, and all of that stuff, and their knowledge of the world, So all of that fits into. However, how do you teach it?
Okay.
So you can have simple thing like your mug here can do so many things. We're looking at this mug. It's got blue on it. You can start to. How many mugs do we have on the table? So you're learning through play.
Right.
It's play-based. So the learning is play-based. You can get a child to count to 50 playfully. Without making it mandatory.
Right.
And then you're hitting them because they missed out on 10 and they said 12. And you're thinking, oh, you're dumb, you're this and you're that. The child will remember the dumb, not remember the fact, oh, I remember the fact that I couldn't count to 12 or I said 12 instead of 10 and teacher called me dumb. They would never forget that. And that's what we're saying to teachers. You can't carry on with that. That's abuse. And that's emotional abuse that every child, even every one of us, would remember. So it's critical that in terms of your teaching, you're teaching the curriculum, but you're doing about it play-based. Right. That's what they need to. The singing is good because they're learning vocabulary, they're learning words. So Tom went to the market, blah, blah, blah. You've talked about market. Oh, which way? Exactly. Now we extend it. And this is where the confidence of the teacher comes in, and knowing the value they add into a child. Is that how do you then extend that song to Okay, the next step would be, let's actually physically go to the market. And let's actually physically go and buy something. Let's actually physically go to the bank and exchange money. We're counting, oh, how many money do we have? We have 5 paper money, 10 paper money. We give it to the counter. Oh, interaction. That's it. What do you say? Please and thank you. That's learning. That's communication. That's part of the curriculum.
Right. So, meaning that teachers also have a huge role to play here. Like we did say before we came on set, you cannot give what you do not have. We've also seen a lot of teachers here go into the profession not because of the passion, not because they want to teach, but perhaps because there's no job in the country. So they find themselves, doing this thing. And so they are also expressing their frustration on those children. And so how do we balance up this issue of teachers also teaching in love, teaching because they want to teach, because they want to impart, and not necessarily because they're doing it because they want to make a living?
So my question is, as a parent, what are your values? What are your expectations? When you take your child to a school, what did you communicate as your expectations from the school? Okay. Because if the school don't know your values, and they can teach your child anything and they can do anything to your child. Same thing as a school, and this is where the confident, and for example, I run so many schools in the UK, my private schools, and I know I've never begged a parent to stay, simply because I know what we add to your child and to your family. We understand what the expectations are. We wouldn't promise you what we can't give you. Okay. Same thing here. As a family, what is it you expect? Because if I have a school, if I know of a school that they're constantly raining abuses and doing stuff that are not within my expectations or within what my values are, I will move somewhere else.
I'm so sorry to cut you here, Caroline. So that doesn't mean that it's expedient for parents to also do a visitation to certain schools before you enroll, or you just, because again, we do a lot of
word of mouth kind of.
Word of mouth, and then my friend's daughter, my friend's son is in that school. And so you do not even care their values or what goes on there. So it means that it's really important for parents to also do a visitation before taking their children to some schools.
If you come into my school, if you don't visit, you can't come.
Oh, really?
You cannot come. You have to not just visit. Outside of asking questions and stuff and knowing what we stand for, you also have to do what we call a trial days, where you're bringing your child in. Again, we're talking early years children. You're bringing your child in, they're experiencing what it is to be in school, they're experiencing what it is to eat with us, they're experiencing what it is to sleep within our space, and we feed back to you. And you then make an informed decision from there if you want your child to attend or not.
Actually pull out?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. And that's it. That's because when you're so proud of what you do, you're not worried about what you're not worried about what the parents' expectations are, because you communicate what you do, what you add into that family, what difference you make in that child's life. So I give you another example. Once a child joins in, at each term, we already told them what we're doing, what expectations they should have, what value we're adding that they would expect their child to be able to do this by next term. Exactly, their milestones. Okay. So we already have that. We already communicate that. So that means we empower you as a parent. When your child, after that term, you come back and say, well, you promised this, and this, and this. They're not here. What's going on? Right. Because if there is an issue, we would have communicated that with you before the end of term anyway. So again, it's a lot around the parent, a lot around the school, and a lot around the government. Because with our government, we have set milestones. We have set methods of having to deliver and expectations of what you should be delivering. And if you don't reach it, then as a school, you failed.
Right. So are this... Okay, you have a question. Okay.
Not a question. I think it's just an observation. When, say, parents have to go to school, they must visit the school before they bring in them. Do parents really know what they're looking out for?
Garbage in, garbage out.
And as Abibola said earlier, most parents, because of the name of the school, the school is for children elites, my children will go to, some parents do not even understand curriculum. Even if you're telling them, they do not understand what, to look out for.
Yeah, so you can also speak to that fact, so like Adibimpe said, parents themselves, if you do not have a value, then you'll take anything. So how important is it for parents themselves to know what it is they're looking for, and then do a checklist? Does the school have can they pass through all my checklists? Because again, you can be swayed by what you see
and the name,
and then the name, and then the facade, and then the fact that okay, I know plenty of people who have children.
Do you know what it is as well? Is the fact that the culture, and I want to speak on this because I know a lot of parents might be watching this and listening, yeah, it's all right for you to say that I'm busy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I've got a nanny. And we take that into account. So the culture outside of Nigeria, in the UK, the States and so on, it's very different from what we have in Nigeria and in across Africa, where we have the nanny system and so on, which is great. I wish I had a nanny. I want to be nannied myself, to be honest. So which is great. However, empower the nanny. Communicate your expectations to the nanny. So if the nanny is visiting, the nanny has your checklist. Like you said, they tick these boxes and say, ma, feedback. When I went to the school, they did this, they said this, they said that. But again, if your nanny is not educated, we're in trouble because the nannies don't even know what they're looking for. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done. But the one thing I never say is like, we've talked for so long. Action. We need to start taking action. And we need to have some sort of mandatory foundation, either set by the government, set by the school, to say, look, this is how we operate. If you don't want to do this, we're comfortable, we're good. Because then it means as a school, you have a value. That the only people, yes, I know the big names. And yes, I know generations that have gone to some big names that are friends of mine that, my 3 sons went there and I went there. And I'm thinking, great, but what is it?
To go there.
And that's it.
Yeah. So, I mean, in taking action, are there set rules that gives or that takes into account how soon a curriculum should be tweaked or should be changed or should be looked into? Because again, sometimes it looks like many times we're complacent and we're good with doing one thing for generations, and sometimes you hear things like, can we, and you hear, do you know
how long?
How long?
And it's worked.
We've been doing that.
Yeah.
Do you understand it's a family tradition? And so we don't want to shift, so we don't want to move. But now it's time to take action. So what are some of those things either government, either schools, either stakeholders like yourself or the private sector need to start doing now to ensure that we move, even if it is just by a step?
Yeah. So the conferences we're having is educating everyone. That includes school owners, practitioners and so on. Practitioners empowering them to go back to their schools and say, ma, I went to training the weekend and they talked about this. Have you thought about maybe how we can implement AI into our classrooms? Something like that. Because anything that's stagnant stinks because it become obsolete. So same thing, even in the UK, that the system I'm used to, we tweak. However, we change the names. We still keep the same thing. We just tweak slightly. So we might call it, I remember when I went into education, it used to be every child matters. And now it's something else. So they tweak slightly, maybe add a line or two, but change the name. So to you're thinking, but the best thing they do is they highlight the new things they've added. So you just take note that, okay, everything you've thought has not become obsolete, it's brilliant. However, we've just added 2 extra lines. So take note of these extra lines. And that's it. So again, it's not total tweaking. Because yes, the system that brought you and I up to this stage has worked. However, moving forward, for the next generation, something needs to be tweaked. And when we were growing up, there was nothing like AI. So you can imagine not tweaking your curriculum and saying, no, you're going to stick to the manual paper. Your school will be so obsolete. Like you'll have no one coming to your school. So taking on the next generation, yes, AI has to be added in. How do we then implement AI within our classrooms? I'm in Ogun State this weekend, and we're going to be talking about that. And that's one of the subjects I'm going to be talking about. Implementing AI within your classrooms. It can't replace everything. We thank God for, because they can't give cuddles, they can't give hugs. They can tweak the subjects, but so we're still good. Schools are still good. You have a job.
So I don't don't know if you've also been opportune to see certain curriculums that have been used in some schools in Nigeria. Don't worry, don't mention the name of the schools, it's fine. But peradventure you've seen, and off the cuff, what are some of those things that you wish could be swept, could be substituted, could be thrown out of the window? You know what? No, this is just not right. And so let's just look at some of those things. We never know who is watching.
Well, so I'd say, to be honest, I haven't. But some of the schools I've been to have been the schools like the really good privileged schools and so on, where the owners have asked, oh, can you please come and consult, come and look in and see what we're doing? And they're doing something right because they've got the British curriculum and all of that. So it works. However, I think for me, and I'm sure for the rest of us and people watching, their constant call will be, who is looking at the ones that don't have a curriculum at all, or the ones that the teacher go in and start to plait hair whilst they're in school and when they're meant to be teaching children? Who is looking at those children? Do you understand? And I guess that's where the government and all of us need to put our strength in and say, okay, how can we change this? Right. But again, it's that thing of like starting with the children and the teachers, changing their mindset and making it mandatory or in such a way that they don't feel like we're only going into teaching because we don't have a job or that's the only thing we have to do. We're going into it because we're passionate about the children we're looking after. If they don't have that passion, you have no role to be in school. You have, so if I was going to change anything at all, it's that thing of wishing our children becomes engineer, doctors, lawyers, and so some of us that unfortunately have not become engineers, have not finished school.
Is there something that we can become?
So,
I'm glad you touched there because that again will be what I was going to ask you. And taking a leap, I mean, moving away from early childhood and going into secondary education, we do know that there's a lot of tutoring at the moment going into being self-employed, going into technical and vocational education. And so how much would you like for governments, the private sector and schools generally to invest in this so that, like you said, not everyone will be a doctor, not everyone will be an engineer, but can we also start making rooms and stop making technical and vocational education look like it is for those who can't study or who can, I mean, you probably still need physics and chemistry to do certain vocational education. So can we speak to that fact and perhaps also speak to the conscience of Nigerian parents to also embrace this form of education? Because truth be told, not everyone is wired to be a doctor.
Well, I definitely haven't turned out to be one of those, I'll tell you. So, and I don't think I'm doing too badly. And yes, if you're looking at and it's not just Nigerian parents, or maybe I should say Nigerian parents in the UK as well, we're like that. Because I remember, two of my children, they went to uni or going to uni, and my last born is going, Mom, don't waste your money, I'm not going to go. I want apprenticeship. Wow. So you can imagine bearing in mind, I didn't go uni until later in life, because I wanted to. So later in life, that's when I went. The first thing in my head is, oh my God, this boy is going to kill me. And I thought, no, Caroline, he's not going to kill you. He's just really...
He's being himself.
And he's being honest.
And you've empowered him.
And sometimes thinking, really, should I have done that? But no, it works. Okay. So there's still that part of you, but it's understanding and say, okay, I'm not going to go into a classroom to sit with you and learn that lesson. And the bits you don't like about it, I allow you. Okay, let's look for a good apprenticeship. And I think it's that thing, but I think the likes of Davido and all these other people have really empowered parents now to see that entertainment actually works. Creative actually works. You have good photographies, you have the likes of Tara House doing the makeup thing and everyone really doing well. It's like, okay, Mom, I want to do makeup. Okay, I guess what? Let's go to the best school that does makeup. Let's go to the best school that is into music. Let's go to the best school that is into drama and arts. But if you do later on want to fall back on education, it's okay too. Right. It's making it that way where the government making that you're never too late to learn. And that's what at 25, I went back into uni to do my first degree and then went on to do my master's. So again, is that thing, I had that privilege, I had that opportunity to say, no, I don't want to learn, I just want to go and work. I don't want to do education, I failed every exam there is, and I want to work. Eventually, I thought, okay, maybe I want to go and do something else. And I was doing that part-time and working full-time. So parents need to be open-minded.
Right.
But we're getting there though. We're really getting there. So because we've had all these entertainers that have gone before and they're making good money and the influencers and all of that stuff. So we're getting there. But there's still room for growth. And going back to our schools, is our schools having to create those platforms that they can do. And I think they're doing it because they're even learning music now in schools. When I was younger, we never used to, well, I never even went into one of those. So I never even knew because I just failed every exams.
Right.
But now they're doing music. Maybe we need to extend it to do drama and photography and things like that. Yeah, you know,
and then there's also the polytechnic education.
Exactly.
And the university education.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
So does age play any role here? Because again, at the moment, you know, there was this debate on whether 16 or 18 should be the appropriate age to get into a university. But finally, government bowed and said 16. Yeah. Is that a good age to start a university education?
So the thing is, when it comes to age, so we've asked what worked in the UK, age worked. So if you're 17 and you're going into uni, you'd go into a secured home. So even you're going to uni, you have almost like a chaperone because they're thinking you're still underage. Anything can happen. Remember, we take safeguarding very seriously. Right. So abuse and all of that. So again, that's another conversation that will take another half an hour. Right. You know, so it's us looking at even all of that. Because if you're 17, allegedly, you're not old enough to
make decisions on your own. Exactly.
But with us and our culture and our tenacity, our resilience, you know, all of that, we're brilliant in Nigeria. Honestly, we're so strong. We're just incredible human beings. It's a shame that we don't use all of those systems and use it to really make good decisions. You know, but we're such resilient people. We're so empowered. We're so informed if we want to make the right decisions. So going to uni, I think personally, I'd say it depends on the parent because you would know how mature.
Of your child.
Exactly. Okay. How mature, how resilient, but the kind of children we're raising this day and age. It's not like what we used to be like, to be honest with you. I'll be honest. You know, so...
Okay. Right.
It's not like what we used to be.
Right.
Yeah, you know, so...
Before we allow you go this morning, again, let's quickly speak to the role government will need to play here. I know you touched on that earlier on. But how much of priority should government focus on education and development of curriculum generally?
Without education, a country cannot thrive. You will do for a little while, but the gap will be so obvious. We're saying in the next, Nigeria as a whole, or Africa as a whole, will be the 10 largest in the next few, in terms of the population, will be the 10 largest in the next few, or even the 5th largest or 6th largest in the next few years. So what are we doing about that? We don't want to raise, this is a country where you have 20, 30-year-olds that can't read and write. How is that possible? What have we done to actually find out what their interests are? And that doesn't require reading and writing, because we have somebody like Richard Branson. He will tell you. Recently, I was listening to a podcast. I think somebody was asking him, at the age of 50, somebody said to him, oh, I'm sure the way he was behaving, I bet you don't know the difference between balance and losses, isn't it? And he's gone, no. But guess what? He's still making money because he has the right people around him, the right advisors around him with the right interests. But for us, what is it we're doing to ourselves? We're constantly taking and digging and pulling people down. No, that's not the answer. So the 30-year-old that can't read and write, have we found out what their interests are? Do we know what their interests? They might be the next Richard Branson as far as we're concerned. They just need the right people to guide them the right way. So we're talking about mentorships. All of that comes into play. Right. So if we're saying education is not the one way, we can't have the one way. One way don't fit all. If we don't have the education, do we have the mentorship programs that would help and lead these people to become great, that what God has called them to be? Right. So definitely government needs to come into it. Curriculum needs to be tweaked to be broad enough to literally advance and help everyone involved, as opposed to a few.
All right, we'll have to leave this conversation here this morning. Thank you so much, Caroline Bokwola, childcare business expert, for finding time to be with us on the program this morning. I mean, we've been speaking for almost 40 minutes.
No way.
No ways, yes, ways.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here, and I've enjoyed myself.
Absolutely. All right, that's the much we'll take on the program today. But of course, as we close on this side and as conversations continue around developing of curriculum, especially here in Nigeria, it is becoming more glaring that there is a need to ensure that the curriculum becomes broader and more encompassing, not only to take care of interest in basic education, but at least begin to look at skills development and other forms of education. We'll take a break on the program. When we return, Adebimpe and Joy will take you through the Lagos conversation. I bet again it's still about the local government. All right, the program continues shortly.